This is the Shilton SL Fly Reel, and it's their middle of the range, high performance saltwater reel. If you're a saltwater angler and you haven't heard of Shilton Reels yet, you should probably get familiar with them. They were founded in 1997 by a South African angler who was looking for a more durable alternative to the reels on the market. Fast forward a few years, these reels have been proven in the Seychelles and beyond, and now we have them here in the US. Today, I'm going to be talking about this SL range of fly reels, which ranges from a 6 weight all the way to a 16 weight. And I like to think of it as their core lineup of saltwater reels. And while some manufacturers out there are building sealed drags and going after max performance, Shilton has sort of taken a different tack. This reel is definitely designed to stop fish and do so well, but it's also a little bit more traditional. In fact, you might notice some similarities between this reel and some other reels on the market as we go through them. Instead of babbling on about it, let's dive into our 5 factors, starting with the drag. And the drag on this Shilton is one of its key features. Like I already mentioned, their tagline is, "We stop fish." If you crank this drag down, it has a lot of stopping power. And I mean a lot. Now, you might be wondering, where does that stopping power come from? And as I said earlier, this is not a sealed drag reel. Shilton has gone back to basics and given you a cork drag. So as you can see, the inside of this reel is a very, very simple mechanism. And that does have some definite advantages, especially if you're guiding in a place like the Seychelles. If you bend something on this reel, it's just got very few parts. And with fewer parts, there's just less to go wrong. And I think that's sort of the essence of these Shilton reels. Unfortunately, not being a sealed drag and being a saltwater drag, you definitely have to worry about rinsing it. You can see these bearings in here. They are exposed. Granted, those are probably sealed bearings, but you'll definitely want to rinse these out after every day of fishing. Now let's talk about some of the specs of this drag. You've got about 5.5 turns of adjustment here, but that's not going to be a true 5.5 turns because at the very top end, it actually tightens the incoming mechanism as well. And at the bottom end, this drag knob will actually come off of the reel. So I'd say there's probably 4 turns or so of somewhat useful drag. But the reality is you're going to be spending most of your time in probably about 2 turns. The good news is that in those 2 turns, you're going to get a lot of usable range. So it's going to go from virtually no drag to maybe 5 to 8 pounds of drag. And that's really going to cover pretty much any 8-weight scenario. And as an added benefit, because this is a standard cork drag, you're actually going to have a feeling as you tighten it. So you'll know, based on the feel of that drag, how tightly you've got it locked down. And I actually think that's a huge benefit on these cork drag reels. And now let's move on to the spool. We've got a max diameter of about 3.2 inches, a width of about 1.2 inches, and an arbor size of about 2 inches. Now, if you follow these specs across many of our videos, you'll notice that this is pretty small for an 8-weight. And in fact, at a 2-inch arbor, I'd call that pretty much a mid-arbor at this point. And as you pick up and hold this reel, it is small by modern standards. So if you're looking for max line pickup, max performance, this is not going to be the reel for you. Instead, this is going to offer a more traditional look with, again, that traditional cork drag. But this does still pick up a hair under 8 inches per turn, which is, again, sort of on the low end for modern saltwater reels. And that works out to about 150 turns for your 100-foot fly line. Another thing that you might notice on the Shilton website is they actually quote backing capacity in meters because they're from South Africa, and in 50-pound because this is designed to be a hardcore saltwater reel. We have calculated the backing capacity at about 150 yards with an 8-weight, which is actually a pretty decent capacity for a reel that's kind of on the small side. So if you're out bone fishing, you're not going to run out of backing on this SL5. Next up is going to be the weight, and this reel here weighs in at about 8 ounces, which puts it on the lighter end of ultra durable, high-end saltwater reels. It's a mid-arbor, so there's just less material overall on this reel, which accounts for that lower weight, but it's definitely not an ultra lightweight reel either. Next up is going to be the sound, and well, let's take a listen. As you can tell, this reel has a fantastic incoming. It's one of the loudest and honestly a very good incoming sound. Unfortunately, on the outgoing side, when a fish is ripping drag, it's pretty muted. So if you're on a loud saltwater flat with a lot going on, you're not really gonna get that whole drag experience out of this reel. But as you're reeling that fish in, you're gonna have a lot more fun. And last but not least is gonna be the ergonomics. And the ergonomics on this reel are actually pretty good. We've got a really nice handle. This handle reminds me of the handles on Nautilus and T-bores. It's just the right length, right size, has a great overall feel. And the drag knob is also fantastic. It's easy to adjust, easy to grab, a really well done design. Unfortunately, this reel suffers in one key area, which is removing the spool. And while that does offer sort of that traditional cork drag and that added ability to interchange parts if you break something, it does mean that you really can't change the spool on the water. You've got to undo this cap, which leaves you with a small piece to lose. Then you have to pull off the drag knob, which can also then be lost. Then you have to pull off the spool, and if you have another spool, you have to take the spindle out here just to get that changed. Honestly, it's a design for which you really probably shouldn't ever be buying a spare spool. Do yourself a favor, buy an extra reel. And last but not least is going to be the price, and this SL5 comes in at $635, which is sort of a mid-priced premium saltwater reel these days. I think Shilton has benefited from being in South Africa with a great exchange rate, and we're able to bring this reel in at a lower price than the Hatches and Nautiluses of the world. Certainly, if you're looking for a cork drag, there's only a few options on the market. You've got Shilton, you've got T-bore, you've got Able. If you're on the fence about a cork drag, I'd highly recommend checking out some of our shootouts. Modern drags exist for a reason, and while these cork drags are great, and they certainly have time-proven performance, there are definitely some benefits to going with a more modern system. With all that said, Shilton delivers with this SL5. They've made a reel that is durable, has tons of stopping power, and is just gonna work great, and perhaps more importantly, is generally available in the market today at a fairly reasonable price point. Tell us what you think about these Shilton reels, if you've ever seen one, if you've ever tried one, by leaving us a comment in the box below. And don't forget, if you've got questions, we've got answers. Give us a call at 888-413-5211 or email us 24/7 at support@tridentflyfishing.com. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We've got a great selection of reel reviews coming right up. I'm Ben. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.